Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about Xenophanes, an ancient Greek pre-Socratic philosopher and poet whom I'm reading about in a pre-Socratic's reader. So Xenophanes is a cool guy. He is, at least from the fragments that we have of his, he is interested in issues of theology and what we would today call epistemology, which is the philosophical discipline of figuring out how we know what we know, or how understanding how knowledge works. So Xenophanes is theocratically heterodox. And what I mean by that is he challenges the certainty that most Greeks in the 6th century, 5th century BCE would have had about the nature of the gods. Specifically, the tradition of Greek religion was that there were sets of God, or sets of deities, some like the Titans and some of the various monsters and their offspring and things like that were not exactly human, but the Olympians and the primary gods worshipped by the Greeks were basically human, just more so. So someone like Apollo, for instance, or Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Athena, these are all humanoid beings who just have greater abilities than regular humans. Xenophanes thinks this is wrong. And he thinks this is wrong on a number of fronts, and he challenges this idea. So one of the things that he writes is, "Give us no fights with titans, no, nor giants, nor centaurs, the forgeries of our fathers, nor civil brawls in which no advantage is, but always to be mindful of the gods is good." So he's questioning here traditional knowledge. He says, "Give us no fights with titans, no, nor giants, nor centaurs, the forgeries of our fathers." He's challenging people like Hesiod and Homer, who have shaped the Greek idea of the divine, who've shaped the Greek idea of what the gods do and who they are. This idea of challenging, or this idea of undermining traditional Greek religion is of course connected to this concern with epistemology that I'll talk more about in just a minute. But he comes directly for Homer and Hesiod in another passage where he says, "Homer and Hesiod have ascribed to the gods all deeds which among men are a reproach and a disgrace, thieving, adultery, and deceiving one another." He also says, "Mortals believe that the gods are born and have human clothing, voice, and form." And he thinks this is wrong. So again, this idea that the gods are a myth. Xenophanes is one of the first people, as far as we know, to really sort of come out with this idea and say the way that the gods are presented is completely human created. People like Hesiod and Homer have taken these images of people and ascribed them to the gods, but it doesn't make any sense. Because Xenophanes has his own distinct idea of what God is, and it is God as opposed to gods. So he says, "God is one, greatest among gods and men, not at all like mortals in body or thought." So again, challenging this idea. For Xenophanes, God as such is not somebody like Zeus or Hera, is not somebody like Dionysus. It's not somebody like Hades, whatever it is. This is not a being with identifiable form or human characteristics or things like this. This is an omnipotent, omniscient entity. Xenophanes says, "All of him sees, all of him thinks, all of him hears." Then later he says, But without effort he shakes all things by the thought of his mind. And then he also says, he always remains in the same place, moving not at all, nor is it fitting for him to go to different places at different times. So this is the complete polar opposite of the gods of the Greek pantheon, the gods of the Olympian pantheon. This is almost more like a particular conception of the Judeo-Christian God. The idea of God not as, in some way, personified. Like, this is not an old guy with a white beard sitting in the clouds. This is almost more like Descartes' version of God, where it's just God is omnipotent power. No form, no action, etc., etc. God simply is. So we've got that element of it. But we also, this is connected again to Xenophanes' interest in epistemology and the questions of how we know what we know. Because in challenging people like Homer and Hesiod, who were these traditional sources of knowledge for the Greeks, Xenophanes is undercutting the way that people think that they understand the world. And he's very aware of this. So he takes on this idea of received wisdom. Because he says, by no means did the gods reveal all things to mortals from the beginning, but in time by searching they discover better. And so this idea, this sort of central idea, kind of undergirds the whole philosophical project. This idea that we don't know the truth. We don't start from a position of knowing the truth. What we start from is a position of inquiry. We begin by asking questions and seeking out the truth precisely because we don't know it. And this is Xenophanes' position. The gods have not revealed the truth to us. What we have as human beings is the ability to go forth and find the truth out ourselves. And he says here also, no man has seen nor will anyone know the truth about the gods and all the things I speak of. For even if a person should in fact say what is absolutely the case, nevertheless he himself does not know, but belief is fashioned over all things, or in the case of all persons. This is, again, a philosophical position. This is a fundamental premise of epistemology as a philosophical discipline. We don't know the truth. We don't know the objective reality of the universe or existence or meaning or any of these things. What we know is what we believe to be true. And belief here, by belief in this case, I don't necessarily just mean like, oh, my personal opinion is X thing. What I mean is the best interpretation that we have of the evidence that's available to us tells us X is the truth. So this is not belief in the sense of like, I was told Bible stories as a child and therefore I believe in a particular conception of God. No, this is belief as knowledge, acquired knowledge that's open to change because it's not revealed wisdom. And that's a crucial component. Again, one of Xenophanes' fundamental arguments is that knowledge is not static because it doesn't come from the divine. It comes from human investigations. And I mean, this is, I think, crucial to Xenophanes and his worldview because he acknowledges that the gods are the way they are in Greek religion, Greek mythology, because of the way that the Greeks are. And he says at one point, Ethiopians say that their gods are flat-nosed and dark, Thracians that theirs are blue-eyed and red-haired. He says in another place, if oxen and horses and lions had hands and were able to draw with their hands and do the same things as men, horses would draw the shapes of gods to look like horses and oxen to look like oxen, and each would make the gods' bodies have the same shape as they themselves had. So, for Xenophanes, because we know that different cultures produce different gods who reflect their own values, ideas, even their own physical appearances, there can't be some transcendent truth. We can't know what in philosophy we would call ontological truth, things as they exist. We don't have access to an ontological truth about the universe. We have access only to epistemological truth, to knowledge that has been acquired, and to understanding the world based on our interpretations of available information.